What if the first lie you ever believed was that you were free? What if every choice you made, your school, your job, your dreams, was never really yours? What if the freedom you're proud of was just the most elegant kind of obedience? They taught you that you could be anything, but every path they offered was already paved, already priced, already owned, and you walked it smiling, believing that movement meant control. You wake up every morning chasing something that keeps moving further away. A better salary, a nicer house, a louder applause. You call it ambition, but deep down you know it's exhaustion dressed as purpose. They call it freedom, but you can't remember the last time you made a choice that wasn't rewarded by someone else. You scroll, you buy, you nod, you agree. And somewhere between comfort and conformity, you forgot how to question. The cage was never metal, it was permission. You were taught to ask for it, to earn it, to be grateful for it. And that's how control survives, not through force, but through your belief that you're the one holding the key. Real freedom doesn't come from choices. It comes from awareness, from seeing the strings before they pull you. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Freedom isn't given. It's taken quietly through thought. If this truth cuts deep good, it means you're starting to wake up. Subscribe to this channel not for comfort, but for clarity. Because the ones who dare to think for themselves are the only ones who ever escape the cage. Do you ever feel like you're drowning in information, yet starving for truth? You scroll for hours, headlines, outrage, breaking news, and still feel empty. Why? Because the noise isn't made to inform you, it's made to own you. They don't need to silence you anymore. They just need to keep you talking about everything all the time until your thoughts lose weight and your words lose meaning. You've mistaken noise for knowledge, volume for vision. You wake up anxious not because of your life, but because of what you just read. You argue with strangers online about problems you can't control. You refresh feeds like they're IV drips for your sanity. And when the screen finally goes dark, you're left with the quiet terror of realizing you don't know what you actually believe anymore. That's the trick. They flood you with so much you forget how to listen to yourself. You think you're choosing what to care about, but it's the noise choosing for you. The enemy isn't ignorance, it's distraction. Every scroll, every click, every fake debate trains your mind to chase stimulation instead of truth. And the more you react, the easier you are to predict. You were never meant to consume this much chaos. You were meant to observe, reflect, decide, not perform outrage on command. The system doesn't need to convince you. It only needs to keep you busy. The quiet mind is dangerous because it can't be controlled. If this hits something deep inside you, it's because part of you remembers what silence feels like. So take your focus back. Subscribe now, not to join the noise, but to learn how to master it. Because in a world that profits from your distraction, your attention is your last form of freedom. Have you ever trusted someone because they seemed kind only to realize later they were controlling you the entire time? Have you ever said yes just to keep the peace while something inside you screamed, no? That's how real power works today. It doesn't threaten you, it comforts you. It doesn't command obedience, it makes you want to obey. They learned that fear creates resistance, but approval creates addiction, and you've been trained to chase it, likes, compliments, validation. Every sweet word becomes a leash that tightens with your own consent. You start working harder just to earn another pat on the head. You shape your opinions so you won't sound difficult. You hide your truth because you've been taught that honesty costs connection, so you stay quiet, polite, agreeable, thinking that's maturity. But it's not maturity. It's submission wearing a smile. The system doesn't need to punish rebellion anymore. It simply rewards conformity and calls it kindness. The hand that feeds you doesn't always love you, it just knows you won't bite it. And that's the genius of modern control. You never feel conquered, only appreciated. They don't have to take your freedom if they can convince you to give it up willingly. That's how comfort becomes control when the chain feels like care. Kindness without clarity is manipulation in disguise. If this truth hits a nerve, that's because you felt it. You've seen the smile that hid the leash. Now it's time to unlearn obedience dressed as goodness. Subscribe to this channel not to rebel, but to remember what real strength feels like. The quiet courage to say no when the world expects you to smile and obey. Do you remember the first time you stopped asking why? Do you remember when curiosity started feeling like trouble, when questioning made you the difficult one? That was the day your mind began to shrink to fit the system. You didn't notice it, but the classroom was the first battlefield of control. They didn't teach you how to think, they taught you what to think. From the very start, you were rewarded for compliance and punished for doubt. You learned that memorizing was safer than exploring, and slowly you forgot that truth was supposed to be discovered, not recited. You grew up believing that success meant following directions perfectly, that being a good student, a good employee, or a good citizen was the same as being intelligent. But obedience is not wisdom. It's rehearsal for submission. You were trained to pass tests, not to question who wrote them, to chase grades, not understanding, to fit in, not to see beyond. Every lesson that rewarded silence stole a piece of your voice. Every rule that discouraged curiosity built another wall in your mind. And now as an adult, you confuse comfort with peace because discomfort feels like failure. But the truth is, discomfort is where freedom begins. Thinking hurts because it stretches the parts of you they told to sit still. You weren't educated. You were formatted. The system doesn't fear ignorance, it fears awareness. That's why it teaches you everything except how to question. It's not too late to unlearn obedience. To think for yourself is to graduate from the invisible school of control. If this message stirs something in you good, that's your real mind waking up. Subscribe to this channel not to agree but to learn how to question again. Because the most powerful education begins the moment you stop repeating and start seeing. Have you ever wondered who you'd be if the world stopped telling you who to become? When did finding yourself turn into buying yourself? They sell you everything now. Your style, your beliefs, even your sense of purpose. And you keep buying because it feels safer to belong than to be real. You scroll through endless shelves of identities: the achiever, the empath, the rebel, the minimalist, the healer, the hustler. Every label promises meaning but delivers a mask. And the cruel truth: the moment you pick one, you stop being free. They told you individuality was power, but they turned it into a marketplace. Now your authenticity has a price tag, and your self-worth depends on how many people approve of it. You think you're expressing yourself, but every outfit, every belief, every post was already designed to fit the trend you didn't create. You aren't living your truth. You're subscribing to one, and it's renewed monthly with your attention. The rebellion they sell you is pre-approved. Even your nonconformity has an aesthetic now. They've mastered the art of turning defiance into another brand. You were never meant to fit inside a label. You were meant to outgrow them all. But the world profits from your confusion. It keeps you shopping for yourself in someone else's store. The moment you stop buying who you are, you start becoming who you were meant to be. And that terrifies the system because authenticity can't be monetized. If you've ever felt lost in the crowd of identities, this is your reminder. You were not made to blend in. You were made to awaken. Subscribe to this channel not to be told who you are, but to remember who you were before the world sold you a name. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and actually saw yourself? Not the version you edited, not the face you filtered, not the smile you practiced to prove you're fine. How many years have you been performing so well that even you believe the act? You tell yourself you're confident, successful, strong, but the voice in your head keeps whispering. Then why do you feel hollow? Because the mirror doesn't just reflect you anymore. It reflects the world's expectations. And every time you check it, you're not asking, who am I? You're asking, am I enough for them? You've built your identity around feedback. Likes tell you you're beautiful. Promotions tell you you're valuable. Approval tells you you're safe. But none of it lasts. Because when your worth depends on reflection, you vanish the moment no one's watching. You've mistaken visibility for existence. That's why silence scares you. That's why being unseen feels like death. The mirror never lied. It just showed you what you trained it to show. You wanted acceptance so badly, you became the version of yourself most likely to be loved. And that's the cruelest trick. You can't find truth in a reflection you built to hide it. You'll never meet the real you by looking outward, only by turning away from applause, from performance, from approval, and facing the quiet. That's where authenticity waits, not in the mirror, but behind it. You don't need to fix your reflection. You need to reclaim it. The moment you stop performing, you start living. And that's when peace begins, not when they see you, but when you finally see yourself. If this hits home, it's because deep down, you know the mirror has been lying for years. Subscribe to this channel, not to polish your image, but to free your mind from it. Because the truest power begins when you stop needing to be seen to exist. When was the last time you said something that was truly yours? Not a quote you borrowed, not a headline you repeated, not an opinion you absorbed from a screen. You talk every day, but do you ever notice how your words sound like everyone else's? You think you're expressing yourself. But what if you've just become a loud echo in someone else's chamber? That's the quiet tragedy of modern life. You were never silenced. You were simply scripted. You wake up, open your phone, and within seconds the world tells you what to think, what to be outraged by, who to support, who to cancel. It feels like conviction, but it's just choreography. Millions of voices moving to the same rhythm, believing it's their own. You don't even realize it's happening because you've confused repetition with conviction. You don't believe things, you inherit them. And the more noise you add, the more invisible you become. Control doesn't need to silence you anymore. It just needs to keep you speaking endlessly so you never have time to think. They don't censor your words. They feed them to you. And you repeat them like prayers, believing every syllable is freedom. The real rebellion isn't shouting louder, it's pausing. It's questioning. It's daring to say something that no one handed to you first. Because when you finally find your own voice, the system loses its grip. Your voice was never meant to please. It was meant to reveal. Don't let the world turn your throat into its speaker. If this hits something deep inside you, if you've ever felt like you're talking but not heard, it's time to stop echoing and start thinking. Subscribe to this channel, not to follow another voice, but to reclaim your own. Because silence, when chosen, is not weakness. It's the sound of power returning home. When did comfort become your cage? When did "I'm just tired" turn into a lifestyle? You tell yourself you're resting, but you're not recovering, you're escaping. You scroll for hours, binge watch distractions, and call it self-care. But deep down you know it's not peace. It's sedation. You used to dream about freedom, about building something of your own. Now you dream about weekends and delivery apps. You used to crave meaning. Now you crave comfort. And comfort is how the system wins, because nobody fights while they're cozy. You stopped challenging yourself because failure feels humiliating. You stopped growing because growth hurts. And every time you choose what's easy, you trade a little piece of your strength for a moment of relief. They told you that peace was the goal, but the kind of peace they sell comes with a screen, a couch, and a quiet resignation. You think you're safe, but what you really are is stuck. Comfort doesn't protect you. It shrinks you. The system doesn't need to chain you, it just needs to keep you comfortable enough not to leave. The trap isn't made of pain, it's made of pleasure, and that's why it works. The truth is, your comfort zone isn't peaceful, it's predictable, and nothing grows in a predictable life. You don't need more rest, you need more purpose, because peace without progress is just a prettier kind of paralysis. You don't escape the trap by hating comfort, you escape it by choosing growth over numbness. Every act of discipline is a declaration of freedom. If this hit home, it's because you know you've been living half asleep. Subscribe to this channel not to feel inspired for a moment, but to wake up for a lifetime. Because real comfort isn't the absence of struggle. It's knowing your pain finally has a purpose. Why do you always need to be sure? Why does not knowing make you panic like the world will collapse if you don't have an answer? You say you want truth, but you crave comfort. You want clarity, but only if it agrees with what you already believe. And that's how the modern God was born: certainty. You worship it every day without realizing it. In politics, in religion, in identity. In every belief that tells you we're right, they're wrong. Certainty makes you feel safe. It tells you you're good. But it's also what makes you blind. You scroll through arguments not to understand, but to win. You cut off people who disagree because they make you doubt. And when the doubt comes, you drown it with slogans and headlines. It feels righteous. It feels powerful. But deep down, you know it's fear, fear of being wrong, fear of starting over. Certainty numbs you. It replaces curiosity with arrogance, humility with pride. It convinces you that growth is betrayal and questioning is rebellion. But here's the truth they never told you. Wisdom lives in the space between I don't know and I'm willing to learn. The moment you stop doubting, you stop thinking. The crowd will always choose the comfort of lies over the chaos of truth. And that's why truth stands alone. It's too heavy for the masses to carry. Certainty feels like strength, but it's the mind's anesthesia. It protects you from pain and from progress. Real intelligence isn't in knowing more. It's in admitting how little you do. The wise don't chase certainty. They chase awareness. Because awareness moves, adapts, evolves, it breathes. If this message stings, it's because you've felt that fear of being wrong. And that's where real freedom begins, in the courage to question your own truth. Subscribe to this channel not for answers, but for better questions. Because those who can live with uncertainty are the only ones truly awake. When did goodness become a performance? When did compassion turn into a contest? You post your kindness, you share your outrage, you prove your morality to strangers just to feel human again. But deep down, you know it's not about helping. It's about being seen, helping. You've turned decency into currency and virtue into validation. We live in an age where morality has a spotlight and everyone wants their turn on stage. You've been told to do good, but what they really mean is, look good. And in that endless play for applause, conscience quietly dies. You bite your tongue to avoid offense even when silence feels dishonest. You choose appearances over authenticity because being liked feels safer than being real. You share opinions not out of conviction but out of fear of exclusion. You parade empathy because it earns you approval, not because it costs you anything. You've mistaken performance for purpose. And every act of false virtue makes it harder to tell who's sincere and who's just rehearsed. The truth is, moral signaling isn't about goodness, it's about control. Because when people fear being labeled wrong, they stop thinking altogether. Control doesn't need soldiers when it can recruit saints. And nothing blinds a person faster than believing they're already righteous. Good intentions don't make you wise. Compassion without understanding turns into weakness. Righteousness without awareness turns into pride. The louder the virtue, the smaller the courage. True goodness doesn't tweet. It acts quietly when no one's watching. The world doesn't need louder moralists. It needs quieter thinkers. If this message hits you, it's because you felt that pressure to prove your goodness instead of living it. Don't perform for the crowd. Think for yourself. Subscribe to this channel not to polish your image, but to sharpen your mind. Because the purest virtue isn't about being right, it's about staying awake when everyone else is busy pretending. Do you still know what you actually want? Or has the world already decided that for you? When was the last time you desired something that wasn't advertised to you first? You think you're choosing, but look closer. Your choices were designed. You think you're free, but every craving, every impulse, every purchase was carefully planted in your mind long before you felt it. You call it preference. They call it prediction. And that's how the algorithm wins. It doesn't control your life. It controls your desires. Every time you click, the machine learns you a little better. It feeds you what you like, hides what you need, and keeps you scrolling between pleasure and guilt. It rewards your obedience with dopamine and punishes your silence with loneliness. And slowly you start mistaking stimulation for satisfaction. You're not chasing happiness, you're chasing hits. The world has turned your attention into a commodity and your curiosity into a pattern. And when your wants become predictable, your power disappears. They don't need to trap you, they just need to study you. Because once they can predict your next move, they don't have to stop you. You'll stop yourself. They don't need to silence you. They just drown you in convenience until you forget what peace feels like. Desire without awareness becomes obedience. The more you react, the less you choose. And that's how control survives, not through fear, but through pleasure. If this truth makes you uneasy, it's because you've felt it, the exhaustion of wanting everything and enjoying nothing. Take your focus back. Train your attention like a muscle, not a currency. Subscribe to this channel not to escape technology, but to master it. Because the one who controls their attention controls their life. When was the last time you were truly silent? Not the kind of silence where you're scrolling quietly or nodding politely, but the kind that makes the world uncomfortable. Do you remember when you stopped speaking your truth just to keep the peace? You've been told that silence means weakness. But what if silence is power that no one can track? In a world addicted to noise, the quiet mind is the most dangerous weapon. Because silence, chosen silence, is rebellion. Every day the world shouts at you, react, comment, prove, defend. And the more you answer, the more predictable you become. You're not expressing yourself anymore, you're performing for an algorithm. You post your outrage, your virtue, your victories, and still feel unseen, because attention is not connection, it's surveillance dressed as approval. The system doesn't need to silence you, it just needs to keep you talking. The moment you pause, you break the rhythm of control. What they fear most isn't your anger, it's your focus. When you stop reacting, you start noticing. When you stop explaining, you start observing. And observation is dangerous because it turns information into awareness. That's when you become unpredictable. That's when they can't read you anymore. Silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. It's the act of reclaiming your thoughts before the world spends them for you. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it breathes between your words. The next time they demand your reaction, give them nothing. Let your calm confuse them. Let your quiet speak louder than outrage. If this resonates, it's because part of you is already rebelling in silence. Subscribe to this channel not to shout louder, but to think sharper. Because the future doesn't belong to those who make the most noise. It belongs to those who master the quiet. What if everything you believed about yourself was a lie? What if the life you built, your job, your image, your relationships wasn't built on truth, but on fear? You've spent years convincing yourself you're fine, strong, in control. But deep down, you feel it. The quiet tremor beneath the surface. That moment when you realize the reflection you've been protecting isn't you. And the day that mirror cracks, your world will shake. Not because it's breaking, but because you finally are. You start to see it everywhere, the little betrayals of self, the way you stay silent to avoid being judged, the fake smiles, the forced patience, the endless pretending that everything is good. You thought survival meant endurance, but now you see it meant erasure. You've played so many roles that you can't remember your real voice. You've worn so many masks that even honesty feels unnatural. But the truth doesn't care how comfortable your lies have become. It breaks everything in its path, especially the illusions you loved most. The system didn't build your cage. You did every time you traded authenticity for acceptance. Every time you chose being liked over being real. Freedom was never stolen from you, it was sold piece by piece for comfort. Awareness hurts because it kills the version of you that fit in. But it's the only kind of death that leads to resurrection. You don't lose yourself when the mirror cracks, you find yourself buried beneath the glass. The world will tell you to fix the mirror. Don't. Let it break. Let it show you the parts you've hidden, the raw, unpolished, untamed truth of who you are. If this message hits something deep, it's because you've felt that fracture inside you. Subscribe to this channel not to escape your reflection, but to confront it. Because only when the mirror cracks does the real face finally appear. When was the last time you said no without explaining yourself? Not because you were angry, not because you wanted to prove a point, but because your peace was worth protecting. You've been taught that saying no makes you selfish, difficult, cold. So you keep saying yes to people you don't trust, jobs you don't love, and expectations that exhaust you. And somewhere along the way, your boundaries dissolved. One apology at a time. That's how control survives, not by force, but by convincing you that rejection is cruelty. So you surrender your time, your energy, your soul, and call it kindness. You say yes to avoid guilt. You say yes to feel worthy. You say yes because you fear being abandoned if you don't. And every yes you didn't mean becomes another thread in the web of quiet resentment choking your life. They've trained you to believe that pleasing others is noble. But nobility without sovereignty is just servitude wearing perfume. You can't save everyone if it keeps killing you. Refusal is not rebellion. It's self-respect. It's the decision to disappoint others before you destroy yourself. It's the moment you realize that peace isn't found in being loved, it's found in being whole. They will call you cold. They will call you arrogant. They will call you heartless for doing what they never had the courage to choose themselves. But one day, they'll envy your calm, because power always looks like arrogance to the powerless. Learning to say no is not cruelty. It's clarity. You're not pushing people away. You're pulling yourself back together. If this message stings, it's because you've been living in someone else's approval for too long. Subscribe to this channel, not to learn how to please, but to remember how to protect. Because the most powerful sentence in the world isn't, "I love you," it's, "No, I choose myself." When was the last time you let yourself think without performing? Not for a post, not for approval, not for an audience, just to understand what you believe. In a world that tracks every word, every click, every thought you share, do you ever wonder what's left that truly belongs to you? They can monitor your habits, predict your desires, and sell you your own reflection, but they can't touch what you never reveal. And that is your last source of power, the mind they can't see. You've been trained to narrate everything, your meals, your joy, your pain. You measure reality by how it looks through a lens. But when everything becomes content, nothing feels sacred. You call it transparency, but it's exposure. You call it connection, but it's performance. And beneath the noise, you feel the quiet ache of invisibility. Because the more they see of you, the less of you remains. There's a reason solitude scares people. It's where the mask loses oxygen. It's where you realize how dependent you've become on being seen. The truth is, you don't need to disappear from the world. You just need to stop handing it your soul for validation. When you stop explaining, stop proving, stop posting your piece, you reclaim something that no algorithm can measure: inner sovereignty. Privacy is not secrecy. It's strength. The unseen mind is unpredictable and therefore uncontrollable. They can't sell to it. They can't manipulate it. They can only fear it because it moves in silence. Protect your unseen self. Think privately. Dream quietly. Build in silence. Because what's hidden is not weak, it's sacred. If this resonates, it's because part of you is ready to retreat from noise and return to power. Subscribe to this channel not to be seen, but to see clearly. Because the most dangerous mind is the one they can't predict. What if there was never a door to your freedom because you were never really locked inside? What if the cage wasn't around you but within you? You've been waiting for permission, for timing, for one day to change your life. But here's the truth: no one tells you there is no gatekeeper, no savior, no rescue. You were always free to leave, just not brave enough to stop obeying. You think breaking free means escaping the system, but real freedom starts the moment you stop believing you need to ask for it. You've spent years chasing liberation in all the wrong places: new jobs, new partners, new cities. You call it starting over, but every time you take the same mind with you, the same fears, the same craving to be accepted, and the same invisible leash, the belief that you still need validation to exist. You say you want peace, but you're addicted to permission. That's why even when the door stands open, you don't move. Freedom isn't something you find. It's something you realize. There's no key because there's no lock. You were never trapped by walls. You were trapped by obedience. And the moment you stop seeking approval, the cage dissolves on its own. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or applause. It's quiet, steady, unshakable. It's waking up one day and realizing no one's in charge of you anymore because you stopped living on their terms. You don't escape the system by fighting it. You escape by outgrowing it, by choosing awareness over control, clarity over comfort, truth over belonging. If this message hits deep, it's because part of you already knows you're done asking for permission. Subscribe to this channel not to follow but to remember, because the final act of rebellion is peace. And peace begins the moment you walk out of a cage that was never really there.